Hey everyone, and welcome to the Urban Fishkeeper. A channel with a little bit of a difference. I guess what we want to try and do on this channel is, many of us have a similar problem where we're limited to the amount of space we've got and what we can keep in that space. So this channel is really about saying, what can I do in a bedroom in a home, in limited space? How many tanks can I keep? What can I keep? How small are the tanks going to be? How big do the tanks have to be? And really what we're going to do is have fun. We're going to try different things, we're going to keep different fish, we're going to try and breed some fish, and it's all about aquarium fish and just having a little bit of fun. At the same time, there's going to be a bit of context to this channel, and wherever possible, I will try and put context around a bit of an Australian theme. And by saying that, it doesn't mean that the international stuff's not good, because there's really good international stuff out there. And our fellow breeders and keepers all over the world, be that in Europe and America, do awesome stuff. But the challenge for us is that I can't go to my local store like they can and just go and grab a whole lot of tanks off a shelf that suit my requirement, or walk into a store and just buy black rams or as I want. It just doesn't, we just don't have that facility available in Australia. So what I'm going to talk about is, there's a couple of things. I'm going to be talking about the kind of stand that I've used here behind me, this rack unit. Where did I buy it? Yeah, bought it at my local Bunnings. What size did I use? What are the tanks that I've got on it? How much of this stuff did I have to go to a pet store and buy? Could I just get it from my local Kmart? What kind of fish am I keeping or trying to keep, or what kind of fish am I breeding or not breeding, or don't want to breed for me, and could that be related to the size of the tank and some other things? So we're going to play around with a lot of stuff. We're going to really have good fun, and I hope to share with you a fair amount of knowledge on what I've done in this space. So if we take the unit behind me, yes, it's a racket unit from Bunnings. Each shelf can take 400 kilos. But how have I set it up? What kind of filtration am I using? For me, I try and drive everything off simplicity. So if I can filter everything in this room that I want to keep purely on air, then that's what I want to do. So we'll look at all of that. We'll look at the kind of filtration that I use and the simplicity around that, and what are the kind of maintenance you have to do when you're using tiny tanks like these tanks here. And they're only 20-litre tanks, but I've got 6 on a shelf. If I used smaller ones on this shelf, I could get another 6 in there, and I've got 5 at the top and so forth. At the moment, I'm going through a bit of a phase around bedders, and I've got a better rack also set up, or a better barracks that I've built. And we'll go through that as well, because that is really taking an old bookcase, going down to the local Kmart, buying the containers, drilling a couple of holes, having a plastic container from Bunnings to build the sump. So I'll run you through all of that. The other thing we hope to do on this channel as well is to do a couple of visits. Now I'm in Queensland, southern part of Queensland, the Gold Coast in particular. And what we'll do is we'll go to some of our local fish stores. We'll take the camera with, we'll go to have a look at what they've got. I'll take you down to some of my favorite places, and we'll go have a browse. So I'm hoping that you'll enjoy what we do on this channel. And the next episode that comes out, this is all new to me. The next episode that comes out, we'll be going through this particular unit behind me. What am I keeping in it? What am I trying to breed? And just the construction, what did I buy, where did I buy it, what is the air that I'm using to supply all these tanks. So I hope you enjoy it. If you do, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to subscribe, if you want to see what's coming on the line. And before I go, let me just give you a quick tour of what we've got in this room. So I'll grab the camera and just show you around what we've got and what we're trying to keep as well. And I at the same time, just to put some relevance to some of this, at the same time, what I will do as well is I'll run you through and I'll talk to you about some of my thinking around why there's so many tanks, why the amount of tanks, and what you need to do to be prepared for what you're thinking of breeding. So a lot of the time, those that have kept fish for many years, we have the tendency, if we have an empty space or we have an empty tank, is we have to fill it with something. Ideally, I'm going to talk to you about why we don't want to necessarily fill it with something, and to rather be well prepared. So You know, have different food types prepared up front before you start the breeding process or attempting to breed. Have the spare tanks, because you know, if something's not right, you want to move, you want to split, you want to move babies into another tank. There's nothing worse than getting to a point where you've got all this fish and now all of a sudden you decide, oh, I need another tank, and then it takes a while for that tank to mature, and while it's happening you're losing fish. So we'll run through all of that. We'll talk about my thinking around some of that as well, and what has worked for me, and I'll also talk about what hasn't worked. So let me take you through a bit of a tour of what's in this room and what I've got set up. All right, so on the main rack, we've got 5 tanks at the top. Not going to go into great detail on all of them, but 2 of them on the left-hand side, those are really, you can see they're not completely full. Those are awaiting some wild bedders, and when they arrive, we'll do a little bit of a episode on those. The center tank has got a whole lot of better babies in it, and those are busy growing. And the 2 tanks on the right, nothing in them, and they're there purely for me to either move more better babies into, or if I need another tank, they're ready to go. In the middle shelf, we've got some stir-by cories on the one side. Not sure if there's a female in there, but we're trying different methods there to see if we can get them to spawn. Then next to that, we've got some dwarfs. We've got what they call the gold Vegeta or Vegeta, depending on how you pronounce it. We've got a pair of Hongsloi. Then we've got a ram female on her own. And the ram female, she was and sorry for some of the reflection. She's supposed to be a blue-black female, spawned with a male. The male unfortunately died straight after that, but I was able to save probably about 10 or 15 of the youngsters out of that, and they are sitting in this little Zeiss container at the moment. At the bottom we've got less tanks, a little bit bigger. We've got a pair of breeding discus in the first one, and we'll talk a little bit more about the discus. That tank is only a 64-litre tank, and there's probably only about 58 litres of water in there. And you know, how's that worked, how's it not worked, some of my views on breeding discus in smaller tanks. And I think a lot of the time we're forced, because of convention, to go really big, but the reality is we don't have to go big if we have a good routine in place and husbandry, and make sure we do the right water changes, don't overfeed, etc, etc. Next to that is a tank with some of their fry. They're about 4 weeks old now, and they're doing reasonably okay. There were a fair amount more, but the 4-week syndrome, I think, has affected them as well. And I've lost a few, possibly through flukes. So we'll talk about that as well, and maybe some of the treatment. Next to that, just a spare tank, again, in case we need it. Next to that, we have a 21 litre tank, and that's really for if there's something sick or if I need to quarantine something. But because none of my systems touch, except for the better rack, I don't need to quarantine if I'm putting into an empty tank. Then we of course run Zeiss for brine shrimp. Then we've got 2 more 100-litre tanks on this rack here, and the one has just got a whole lot of guppies and bristlenose in, and the other one has got it's got 2 golden rams in, and that's really just keeping that tank running at the moment, or keeping it cycled. Below that we've got some trays, and those trays get used for spawning the betters. The one has got a fair amount of babies in it. The other one's got a male with some eggs, and the other one has got a pairing at the moment. Yep, that's just some of my reptiles on that side, so ignore those. This is the better rack, and this is just made from a old bookshelf, Kmart containers, Bunnings container at the bottom, running the sump, and then it's piped up and it's got some taps on it to regulate the flow, so you can have drip systems. But I will go through more detail on the actual build of this, and what I used, what I bought where, some of the challenges with it, what worked, what didn't work well. And with anything I build, there's always V1. Well, this is V1, and I'm already designing V2. So, you know, subscribe and you'll be able to see what I do with V2. The other thing is I also have a little unit or a little tanks down below, and those have got just two of them currently have got in, and those are just wild betters, or hybrids at least, should I say. So the other two are empty, and they will be getting some shortly. So I'll also share a little bit more when we go through some of the details. I'll just show you a little bit more of what's in each one of the tanks. So just in a nutshell, that's what the setup looks like, and I will be going through all of it and sharing with you in detail exactly what I've done, how I've built it, what I had to buy, more or less costs associated with it, what worked well, what didn't. And really, you know, it's for us to just try and have fun, and, you know, you don't need to have massive amount of, massive fish tanks all over the place, and, you know, big aquariums all over your house, and, you know, to breed and have fun with fish and keep a variety of fish. In my opinion, that's not needed. If you do the right filtration, and it doesn't have to be, you know, massive canister filters and all the rest of it. You know, this whole unit here is run on air. You know, if you filter right, you do your regular water changes, you watch the chemistry if you need to, you tweak if you need to, but wherever possible, keep it as simple. And then you know it's all the same, and you can move fish around because the water's all the same and the chemistry is all the same, and it makes it a lot more fun. And we'll talk about what's good to start breeding with. You know, if you're new to this and you want to try something, we'll go through, you know, easier fish to breed. But at the end of the day, you know, you walk into a pet store or into a fish store and you see something that you like, well, you know what? Do a little bit of research. If it's not super aggressive, you're going to keep them on their own. You know, you don't necessarily have to separate them all the time, and all the interesting parts that go with fish breeding and aggressive fish in particular. You know, if you like it, do the research, ask the questions, set up a little tank and give it a go. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, well, you know what? Try something else. You know, or keep trying till you eventually get it to work, or ask around and ask on this channel, and, you know, just, it's about having fun and enjoyment. Too much of this becomes too serious, and it just becomes all consuming. And we should be doing it for the fun and the enjoyment of it. And at the same time, you know, you know, when you breed that little handful of guppies, you know, that's just as great as breeding, you know, a whole lot of rams, or, you know, breeding, you know, discus. The enjoyment and the fun and the success should just be the same. One is maybe more challenging than the other, but the enjoyment should be the same no matter what you're breeding. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. Hit subscribe, and shortly I'll be posting up another video, and that video will focus purely on this rack, what was used, how it was built, what's on it, what we're trying to do, and then we'll move through to the other parts of the room, and then we'll try and throw in a couple of visits, store visits as well. So thanks a lot for listening. See you soon.